Iyong komunidad. Piliin mo ang iyong bukas. Exercise your right at pumoto sa Martes, November 2nd.
This American Dream segment is brought to you by Aquino & Lowe Law Firm, answering your immigration questions.
Every other week, we have immigration update for you here kung saan po sinasamahan tayo ng ating dalawang mga kumpanyero mula sa Aquino & Lowe Law Firm, Attorney Allison Aquino, and joining us today on the show, Attorney Richard Lowe. Hello and welcome to Kababayan, LA. You know what, first of all, Richard, let me thank you for always helping our Kababayans. You know, how's the immigration climate out there? So I hear some people are saying, you know, it's not really too busy because there aren't too many new regulations or new laws. People are just waiting for the comprehensive immigration reform bill.
Yeah, that's really what's happening. I think the people who have been able to be helped by whatever laws were in place have been helped, and a lot of people are, also because of the economy, just kind of sitting back and waiting for some changes in order to go forward.
And I know, speaking of help, you have also helped a lot in terms of cancellation of removal. Let's first talk about removal proceedings or removal. What does that mean?
Well, removal proceedings are when the government is trying to literally remove you from the United States, either because you have overstayed your visa when you first entered or because you have done something while here that has made you removable from the United States. And they are like court proceedings in which you appear in front of a judge.
But the thing is, there is hope because it's not absolute. Is that correct? If I receive a cancellation, if I receive a notice for removal proceeding, does that mean I really have to go, or is there any relief available to me?
No, there's actually a lot of things that you can do. If you are in removal proceedings, it doesn't mean that you can't become a permanent resident just like you would in front of the district office or some other application. So if you have a petition from an employer or a family member, those things can go forward in immigration court. But if you don't have any of those things, you can also try to ask the judge to have the cancellation, have the removal canceled, and that is that they would find you removable but allow you to remain in the United States as a permanent resident.
Okay, see, and let's clarify this because there are two types of people here. The ones that are permanent residents, meaning green card holders. Okay, first of all, if you're a citizen, this doesn't apply to you.
That's right. Once you are a citizen, you cannot be removed from the United States by immigration courts. You are a citizen for life until you yourself decide, I don't want to be a citizen.
Right. Okay, now, let's talk about for two types of people, those that are permanent residents, green card holders, and those that are non-permanent residents, meaning, you know, maybe on visa, H-1B, F-1 student visa also, and those who unfortunately even don't have any visas at all. What are the differences?
Well, if you're a permanent resident, you're here in the United States as long as you don't break any laws. And sometimes, inadvertently maybe, or we just fall from the good graces that we're following, we end up in committing a crime which makes us removable.
And, okay, let's be clear about that. Even domestic violence can be considered a crime.
Absolutely. Domestic violence can be considered a crime. Anything as simple, believe it or not, as bouncing a check.
Oh.
Traffic violations? Traffic violations are generally not. Those are infractions, unless they're very serious. Speeding at a very high level could make you reckless endangerment, and that could be a crime. But any of those things that maybe would make you removable, you'd find yourself in removal proceedings.
Yeah.
And at that point, you can ask the judge to cancel the removal. It's a much lower standard for permanent residents, and it's essentially a second chance. The judge will just basically weigh the time that they've been here, their connections, their family ties, against whatever brought them to the purview of the immigration court, and balance those two things. Almost all kinds of cases are granted.
And that is if you are a permanent or a green card holder. What about if you're not a permanent resident? Is it graver? Is it more difficult to get cancellation for removal proceedings?
Yes, it is. If you're not a permanent resident, the standard is much higher. You have to be here, first of all, 10 years. And that's 10 years before the notice to appear or whatever document puts you into court, or the crime that you committed puts you into court. So if you've committed a crime that makes you removable, and that crime was committed a while ago, it might mean that you can't get cancellation or removal. So there's a big window, the 10 years that you have to be here, and that has to be good moral character during that whole time. And then you also have to show exceptional and extremely unusual hardship not to yourself, but to a spouse, a child, or a parent who is a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. It's a very high standard.
Okay. Well, I see that there's also a special rule of cancellation for battered spouse and children. What is that?
Yeah, that's correct. We've talked about battered spouse and children before on this show, and this is a particularly special category for them, because if you are a battered spouse, let's say, and you were in a relationship maybe a long time ago, 1997, and you had married a U.S. citizen, and you were battered, but you didn't do anything about it, you didn't get put into removal proceedings, you got divorced and went on with your life. Now something happens and you're in removal proceedings, you can actually get special rule cancellation. It's a much lower standard. You just have to show that you were battered or abused by a permanent resident or U.S. citizen spouse, and that you were only here 3 years instead of 10 years. And most of the times, if you can prove that you were battered, a judge will allow you to remain in the United States.
And I also hear of people who purposely subject themselves to removal proceedings so that they can avail of the cancellation of removal. Does that make sense?
It doesn't for me. I've heard of this, and there are people that will do this because they want to get a work permit, and this is sold oftentimes by notarios saying, oh, well, I can get you a work permit if you just file this type of application.
Right.
You're going to be in proceedings. Usually starts with an asylum application. But for me, this is a defensive kind of relief, that if for some reason you find yourself in removal proceedings, then you would ask for cancellation and removal. It would be an extremely unusual situation for you to put yourself in front of the court to remove yourself in order to cancel that removal.
Okay, and if you have other questions, of course, this is always a case-by-case basis, right?
Absolutely.
The lawyers at Aquino and Low Law Firm, they're always there to help us. They give free face-to-face consultation. Thank you so much, and more power to you. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
At dito naman po sa Kababayan LA, we will be back for more. Don't go away.